What is going on, y'all? It is the DFS show, the Daily Destroyer, part of the Dynasty Warzone Network. We will be talking the main slate on DraftKings. Is a little bit more interesting of a main slate this time because we have 3 Saturday games, so it's only a 10-game slate on Sunday, the main slate. So just to be clear, we're not talking about the Saturday 3-game slate. We are specifically, there we go, talking about Sunday's main slate, 10 games. He is Lou. I'm Tyler. Like we always do, we'll start at the quarterback position. Lou, it's a little interesting right off the bat already because I thought Mike White against the Lions was already going to be a good play, but apparently he is not cleared, and Zach Wilson is going to start. I have no interest in Zach Wilson, but I think Mike White was going to be one of the favorite plays, at least in my opinion. So where are we going now?
Yeah, you could argue that there's some cheap plays available. Mike White was definitely the best of them. You can go up a little bit. I like Dak Prescott at 6,200. Decent matchup against the Jaguars. I kind of expect this game to have some good scoring in it. Both of these teams have been a bunch of shootouts this season. So I like Dak for 6,200. Another one a little more expensive is Justin Herbert, 7,200 against the Titans. Titans just keep giving up points to opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers. So I like those two off the back. They're probably my favorite plays at the quarterback position.
Yeah. I mean, when I was taking a look at this, Mike White stuck out. But then after he was declared out, I really couldn't bring myself to pay for somebody cheaper. Likely going between Dak Prescott or Herbert. If you wanted to go Burrow, I'd be there, but I think it's going to be Prescott or Herbert for me. So don't do anything too crazy to add on there, but that's basically in cash the direction that I'm going to be looking. I think Hurts at 82 against the Bears is always a fine play. I think Mahomes at 81, also a fine play. I just don't find myself. I find myself needing that extra $1,000. So Herbert or Dak is likely, or 2,000 in Dak's case, but Dak or Herbert is likely where I'm going.
Yeah, at least for cash, I think you can basically do obviously whatever you want in tournaments. I do think getting to Prescott at 6,200 seems like the route I'm gonna plan on doing. I'm not sure though. Like it seems like people are pretty on just going all the way up to getting Mahomes at 8,100. There is some decent value at other positions on this slate, so I think you can get up to Mahomes. So if you can, probably worth it. But he's facing the Texans, and they could just get out to a big lead early on. And a lot of teams like to run on the Texans. That's how they get their points. So not sure if I'm going to do it in cash, but I think you can if you
I think
want go all
the
the way up.
argument for Mahomes though is that they still pass even when they're up. Like they pass in neutral game scripts. They're just a passing team. That's how they move the ball. So I still like. I guess we can get to Pacheco. I guess, but it's a fair point. But I don't think that would necessarily scare me off of a team like the Chiefs, knowing how they operate in terms of like pass rate over expected and passing during neutral game scripts. But quarterback seems pretty straightforward there. There's not a ton to talk about. Let's just give me your pool of 3 quarterbacks because we have a lot more to talk about at the other positions.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Herbert, Prescott, and Mahomes.
Great. Moving over to running back. This is where things kind of get a little more interesting. Let's start at the top just because I always think it's the most interesting to start there. We'll start with these top 3 guys. Eckler, 85. Josh Jacobs, 81. Derrick Henry at 8. I think Eckler and Henry are arguably in pretty damn good spots. Josh Jacobs is kind of a tough one against New England, but he's been a ridiculous bell call all season. The prices all seem to make a lot of sense. How are you handling these kind of top flight, premier, expensive running backs this week in cash?
Yeah, I think Eckler is probably my favorite. Jacobs, I have some concerns with this matchup against the Patriots. I think Eckler has a lot better matchup. If you don't go Herbert at QB, then I'm probably want Eckler. I think this is going to be one of the games that has a good amount of fantasy scoring in it. So trying to get pieces of this game. So I'll probably go with Eckler there. Henry, I think finally we're going to get some lower ownership. Maybe not. I mean, this is one of the better running matchups against the Chargers. So I think that'll get hyped up as well as we go later into the week. So I think all 3 of these guys will probably get owned. Eckler's my favorite. And then I think Henry would be 2. You're mute.
Thank you. Let's shift down here. Sorry, there's people actually working outside my place too. So we're both dealing with like some construction at the same time. So perfect time here. Anyways, mid zone here. Let's shift down.
Yep.
My eyes are gravitating towards Kamara at 68. Just seeing him at that price, I think grabs your attention. We usually do not see him there at 68. We didn't talk about him before, but I think James Conner is an interesting spot against Denver, who we know Denver's had their woes, but they still are very elite against the pass, and the path of least resistance for teams playing against the Broncos has been on the ground, and James Conner has probably one of the best strangleholds over the running back room in terms of snap share in all of football. And then Miles Sanders at 65. They're like, 9-point favorites. Sanders has had 2 30-point games in the last 3 weeks. So, when I get off that top tier, I shift down a little bit. I see Connor at 69, Kamara at 68, Sanders at 65. There's some interest there, at least, from my perspective. So how are you kind of handling this kind of mid-range of running backs? Is there someone you like maybe that I didn't mention, or those guys?
Yeah, I like Kamara. The issue with Kamara is we haven't really seen his upside much this year. With Taysom there, that takes some of his touchdowns out of the way, and just the offense in general hasn't been as Kamara friendly as years past. I do think Connor, the way that the Cardinals are playing, they've been very friendly to him. So I might have a slight lean to Connor. I think later in the week, one thing we've talked about with Cash in the past weeks is there's a lot of people playing very similar or the exact same lineups in Cash. And if it's going to be the case where everyone's playing this lineup with Kamara, then just switch Kamara to Connor, and opposite if it's all Connor, and that's one way you can get different. I don't think they're all too different of plays here. I think I have a slight lean to Connor just because of the way he's being used in that offense and with Colt McCoy there now, they might lean on him a little more. So I prefer Connor. I do like Sanders as well. Not sure if I like him more than Kamara, but his role in that offense has just been amazing. We've seen him get 30, 35 points here in fantasy. He's been one of the guys that you might have needed this year to get to your fantasy playoffs. So I really like Sanders as well.
Keeping this trend going down the line, there's 2 other guys that I think we need to talk about. One that's going to be Isaiah Pacheco. We know it's a print. We talked about it before. Like, Chiefs like to throw the ball. We know that. But running the ball has just been a print fest against the Houston Texans defense. I mean, they're bottom 5 in any metric you can find. So it really lines itself up well for Pacheco to have a really good game in this one. I think, in terms of my ranks, I have like Pacheco's, I think, a running back 15 on the week. So clearly a lot of faith in what Pacheco can do this week. And then moving down just a little bit further, wanted to just address it, but Zonovan Knight, a very popular pick, 5,300. Now that Mike White is out and Zach Wilson is back, I have no interest in Zonovan Knight at 53. I think it was kind of a tough matchup anyways. I was probably going to fade it because Detroit Lions, like, you can pass on them, and their run defense has been better as of late. So it's like running backs have not been finding success against the Lions. So I was probably fading Zonovan Knight anyways, but with Zach Wilson under center, Zonovan Knight's kind of out of that territory for me. So I'm looking in the 5s here with some confidence. It's likely falling on Pacheco. Anyone else in that range? Thoughts on Pacheco? Thoughts on Knight?
I like Pacheco. I'm not that interested in Knight. Pacheco, I think at this point you can pretty much pencil him in for 15 to 18 carries. And against the Texans, like we talked about this play last week with Pollard, where even though he was splitting some time, you could break off big plays against the Texans. They just are incapable of stopping the run. And we've seen the Chiefs lean on the run more in the past few weeks than pretty much the past few years. So I think Pacheco is going to get his carries, and the likelihood of him scoring touchdowns is probably higher than other weeks in this case, where they might just get out to a big lead and, he runs a little more often than other weeks. I think last week a lot of people were on McKinnon, but that game was more of a shootout. I don't know if it was necessarily expected to be, but so like Pacheco, to me at 5,900, that's a good price for someone that is getting at least 15 touches pretty much guaranteed.
And then moving down, I think there's some really interesting scenario going on with the Patriots running backs. Like, they're playing the Raiders. Raiders defense isn't great. Ramondre looks all but out, right? He's got the ankle injury, hasn't practiced at all. Damian Harris has been limited on Thursday. And then you have 2 running backs if Damian Harris misses, Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris, which are pretty much rocking the Stone Min at this time at 4K. So for me, it's just a matter of like, we might have to wait for some injury news to kind of work its way around here. But, there is at least, we saw Kevin Harris with 8 rushes and a TD last week, right? And then we saw Strong, sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. Strong ended up having 5 rushes and 2 receptions. So at 4K, if Damon Harris can't go, there's a lot of interest between Pierre Strong and Harris. Kevin Harris, not Damian Harris. Probably end up going Pierre Strong. I think he's a better running back. I think he's a better prospect. Looks like he's getting the pass work a bit more. But like, if Damian Harris doesn't go and Ramondre sits out, I almost feel like you have to play Pierre Strong or Kevin Harris, Eileen Strong. Kind of your thoughts. I know there's a lot up in the air. It's Friday when we're recording here. We don't have all the information yet, but it is something to monitor because if those running backs are out, man, I feel like Strong has to get in there.
Yeah, I think I have the lean too Strong as well. It's just tough. Like, it's a good matchup. The way that the Patriots do things, like either one of these guys could come out of this game with multiple touchdowns on the ground. You just don't know with Belichick what's going to happen. But yeah, to me, I think I probably also favor Strong here, which is funny because like, I don't know, going into last week, I probably would have favored Kevin Harris, but now it's almost like what we've seen from Strong. Like, I don't know if they're going to have any sort of passing role with the running backs. I think it's going to be Strong. So to me, I think I still lean him between the two.
Any other running backs you want to touch on here? I mean,
yeah,
I think I've pretty much talked about everyone that I have interest in. I think there's a couple maybe ancillary pieces worth talking about, but I mean, I've pretty much talked about, or you've talked about everyone that I'm likely going to be getting into those cash lineups.
Yeah. I think those are pretty much the ones for cash, but you could argue David Montgomery at 6,300 against the Eagles is cash viable. I think people are going to lean. I'd rather just go down to Pacheco at that point. You can play Tony Pollard any given week. Maybe not as good now that Zeke is back to be playing him, but I do think he's pretty much viable any given week. Rashad White is all right at 5,400, but the way they're using him with Lenny back is tough. So that's the thing. In this like 5K range, it's kind of what they all are. You could play Deonta Foreman if you wanted, 5,400. Like, he's probably a better play than those two. Do you have any interest in DeAndre Swift? He was pretty trendy last week.
No, I'm not doing it in cash. I'll tell you why. He's off last week he was off the injury report. He was apparently 100%, and they still had a 3-way split. Then it wasn't just Swift and Jamal Williams anymore. I think Justin Jackson had 29% snap share in that. Like, they're really going with the committee here. I think the Lions staff at this point in time has given us every indication that they don't plan on giving Swift any type of bell cow role. And until he can take some of that red zone touches away from Jamal Williams, it's just a really tough one for me. I'm not opposed to playing Swift in your tournaments or single lineups and stuff like that because I think the upside is there. He still gets some red zone looks. He's got the burst. He can get a long play. He's getting pass work, but I think there's just a lot better options than trying to depend on a running back that could easily walk away from this game against the Jets, which is already a tough matchup with a 40% snap share.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's sort of what you're looking at with a lot of the guys in that range, though. Even like Jamal Williams is also not 100. He's also going to be splitting.
Touchdown. Yeah, I'm just not there. This is just a matchup where I just don't want any piece of that Lions backfield.
Yeah.
Not guessing there. All right. Any other running backs before we go to the pool?
Nope. I think we touched on.
Let's do a pool of 5. Pool of 5 running backs.
Yeah, I'll do Eckler, Connor, Kamara, Pacheco, and let's say Derrick Henry.
Love it. Wide receivers. Things are a little more interesting here. I feel like it's always natural starting here at the top. Arbitrary cutoff as always. We'll go with Amon-Ra, 78, starting to finally gain up there in price. Tough matchup. A.J. Brown, 8K. Jamar Chase, 83. Devontae, all the way up at 9. Those top four. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 78. AJB, 8. Jamar Chase, 83. Devontae Adams, 9. Your thoughts on these upper tier, top end wide receivers?
I think my favorite is Jamar Chase. He's just with there's injury concerns around the Bengals wide receivers. Chase might just be the guy, and Burrow is going to feed him if he is. So he's my favorite. The Bucs have been allowing wide receivers to beat them up this year. Excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, sorry. Was there more after the sneeze?
Oh, I mean, you can play Devontae Adams any given week. His ceiling is massive, and he's pretty much matchup proof. Jefferson's not on a slate. Cup's obviously not on a slate like these other guys that can match his ceiling. AJ Brown, 8K is all right, but I don't think I'm going to be on him this week. You play him any given week. Like the Hurts AJ Brown stack, whenever it's low owned, we've seen it pop off. So that's reasonable, but I think Chase is by far my favorite in this upper range.
It's an interesting week at wide receiver because I don't think there's much in the mid range that I have a ton of interest in, because I feel like there's the expensive guys and there's just a lot of cheap guys that I really like. So let's kind of go to this mid-ish range where there's a couple guys that I think are at least worth talking about. Right off the bat, for me, when I look at this range, it's going to kind of start with Keenan Allen at 68, back-to-back games of 14 targets. 14 targets 2 weeks ago. You're like, Mike Williams is coming back. No way he does it again. Yes, he does. Another 14 targets for Keenan Allen at 68. I think that price is pretty solid there. Godwin, like you said, it seems to get there every week at 67. And I believe one of their corners just got ruled out as well, so that could bode well for Godwin. Mike Williams at 63. The upside is always there with the touchdowns. And then I do want to kind of just cap that off at Garrett Wilson at 6K. Not playing him with Zach Wilson. I think I'm just off of the Jets entirely. I love Garrett Wilson. This absolutely sucks to see Mike Williams not be able to suit up. Hope he gets better soon. But Zach Wilson is just not a guy that I trust to do anything for this offense. So I'm out on Garrett Wilson at 6K. Sorry, not playing it. So this kind of mid-range here, what we're looking at, where does your interest lie? Fades, buys.
I like the Keenan Allen play in cash. I think he's one of those guys that you play in cash, you fade in tournaments. I think you can play him in tournaments, in Herbert lineups, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be playing him much in tournaments, just because the guy you play in tournaments is Mike Williams kind of thing, unless you're double stacking them and really having it go off. I think Godwin's a good play. You pretty much play him any given week. He's the guy there. He's definitely above Mike Evans at this point. Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, a lot of these guys in this range are all kind of the same. Are you going to go back to the Judy? Well, we saw him get 3 touchdowns last week, but Judy basically gets you double-digit points each and every week. He does all right. Now we see him getting into the end zone. Good matchup against Cardinals. I don't know if you can trust them. Is Russ Wilson gonna play? I know he had the concussion. But if he's out, I wouldn't touch Judy. But it's really only if he's in. But do you have any interest in Judy?
No, but I can't fault you for playing him. Russell Wilson returned to Broncos practice in a limited capacity, so I think he plays. I mean, I think Judy's a fine play. I'm just not going there. I don't trust him. I've never been a big Judy guy. Maybe it's a little bit of bias here, but it's just not the move that I'd be willing to make here. So no one Judy is just Broncos offense. I'm not chasing those points from last week, man. I guess the big question, then you go down, right? And I feel like we have cheap guys who I think are in really good spots. I mean, Chris Moore, 4,200. I think you said he had 10 targets last week. He's in the slot. The Chiefs usually give up a lot of points to the slot receivers. Chris Moore seems like a pretty damn good play. I think I did like Elijah Moore a little bit, but not anymore. Nelson Aguilar, last wide receiver standing. I don't love Aguilar, but it looks like Jacoby Myers won't be playing in this one. So there's and then Devontae Parker's out. So, I mean, you're getting a lot of targets. You're probably getting 6 to 8 targets for $3,400, which people are going to do most of the time. I think you could talk to me about other Pats wide receivers if you really needed to. I won't. But thoughts on these cheaper wide receivers? I miss anyone you want to hammer down on any of the ones I spoke on?
Yeah, Chris Moore is like by far the best of them. We saw him have 10 receptions last week. He's going to be mega owned, one of the highest owned players on the whole slate probably. And I think it's just one of that chalk that you just eat, because if he does have another 100 yards in this game, you pretty much are going to need him. Um, Besides that, like it's all very similar. All these guys are kind of similar to each other. Um, Jameson Williams got that touchdown last week, but that's all he did. Um, Kendall Hinton has just been this cheap guy that you can kind of plug in each week, but hasn't done all that much. Yeah, it's kind of like you could play any of the Detroit wide receivers. You could play any of the Patriot wide receivers. Picking between one of the Patriots wide receivers is just it's difficult.
Yep.
I think the field is going to lean Aguilar, so that might have me wanting to lean Thornton and more of like a bet on talent versus how he's been used so far. What do you think about Amari Rogers' potential fade off of Moore? Like he's had
Probably not.
some work, but I mean, if you want to not have Moore, and you're probably going to have him or Dorsett in that lineup. So I don't really like much in this range. I don't think you have to go all the way down here either in this week. You can go up into the 4Ks. Like you have a guy like Michael Gallup at 4,500 that's probably a better play than all those guys. Just pay up a little more. DJ Chark, also 4,500, who we saw it last week. Like he can get big plays. He can have touchdowns. Like, do you have any interest in Gallup or Chark this week?
Chark, no, because the matchup's tough. So Jets defense is good. Sauce Gardner is elite. He doesn't really shadow. He plays like one side of the field. He goes to really shut down one side of the field. So if like Chark's on that side of the field, like I'm not counting on anything from him, right? So it's just kind of tough. I don't know how's that going to shake out. What's that going to look like? I think Amon St. Brown is not only their best wide receiver, but he'll move around, so he doesn't have to worry about that. But it's just not the direction I'm going. Maybe we see Jameson Williams snaps move up a little bit in this game. Josh Reynolds obviously still a factor. Scored a touchdown last week. So Chark's just not a direction that I'm going to go. Gallup, I like the matchup, and we know that he can score touchdowns, so I'm okay with Gallup. It's more of a gut call than anything. He's not necessarily at the top of the pecking order, but I like Gallup. I'm okay with Gallup.
I think these guys are just like so much better from not even just like a safety standpoint, but you know what you're getting from them versus trying to pick one of these Patriots receivers, out of the lineup kind of thing.
Makes sense. Any other wide receivers you want to talk about before we go to the pool?
No, I think we pretty much touched it. You could play someone like Zay Jones, who's also in that range. Your boy Drake London in that range as well. But I think we pretty much touched any of the guys that would be playing.
Yeah, I can't advocate for Drake London, honestly, in cash, but I do think that Ritter gives him a bit of an upgrade, and I believe in the talent. So just something to add there. Tight end position, actually, sorry, before we go to tight end, pool of 5.
Yeah, I'll do Chase, Jamar Chase, that is, Chris Godwin. It's tough choosing some of these wide receivers this week because some aren't as safe as others. But I'll say Keenan Allen, Chris Moore, and let's go with, I'll say Gallup as my last one.
Tight ends, man. I feel like there's not a ton going on here. Kelsey, always in play at 78. I like Chig a decent amount. Okonkwo, 31. Dulcich, 36, which is usually tight end print fest against the Cardinals. Not a ton to talk about here, but I haven't had the money to pay for Kelsey at 78, but I think he's always a good play. But I found myself going to Chig at 31, and I'm okay with Greg Dulcich at 36.
Yeah, I agree pretty much there. It's just so hard to pay up for Kelsey each week, at least in cash. Like you save so much by going to one of these 3,100 guys. Probably my favorite is Chig at this point. He has pretty much 3 catches, 40 yards in him each week and 3,100. Like, what else can you ask for? Conklin seems it's a little more up and down with him. Dolchich is perfectly fine at his price every week. You could go up to Schultz if you want, but I'm probably just going to play Chig. And I don't know about chasing Ingram again, but I'm probably just going to play Chig.
Close it out. Defense, special teams. I think there's a lot of good options here. I think a couple that stick out to me is I think the Lions defense now at 3K playing against Zach Wilson sounds good. Panthers or Pitt. I think Panthers or Pitt. I think you can go Panthers at 33. Pretty comfortable with that. You could also go the Steelers at 31. Pretty comfortable with that. But I think there's kind of this mid-range. I don't really feel comfortable dropping down to, say, like the Titans or anything like that. I think the Broncos are interesting at 27, but like probably end up going either side of this Panthers-Steelers game.
Yeah, I think that's probably a safe enough play. I think Broncos are fine. Lions are fine. There's a lot low totals on this slate.
Under 40, yeah.
If you're not playing that Herbert or Eckler, you can go all the way down to Titans if you want. I don't know if I'll do that, but yeah, it's probably Falcons for the cheap ones are my favorite. The 25 and under stuff. Broncos 2,700. I don't think Colt McCoy is all that bad, but I mean low total. They do have a decent defense. They could get a couple picks, some sacks, so I think they're fine too. The expensive defenses are all in great spots. You might be able to afford them this week. Actually, a lot of people have paid up for Cowboys defense last week against the Texans. They might pay up for Chiefs defense this week. So I could see that as too, but I don't know. It's kind of like play whatever fits kind of week. Like there are a bunch of decent plays. Some are probably better than others, but at the end of the day, it's defense, and it's kind of throwing darts at some of these.
All right. Final thoughts here, Lou. Week 15 DFS.
A lot of low scores, a lot of low totals on this slate. Might not be as much fantasy scoring, so could actually be really good to kind of play it safer with some of these floor guys, because there might not be as many touchdowns on this slate than normal. It might be a little lower scoring. There's only 10 games. So that's just something to keep in mind while you're out there building those lineups.
All right, Lou, plug the Twitter, plug the work.
Yeah, at Lucky_LewDog. I create content for DraftKings Rainmakers over there. So if you're interested in that product, check it out.
And you can find me on Twitter at FFTylerO. That's all we have today, folks. Don't forget, tell somebody you love them. Later.